Nitin Gadkari says he's throwing himself open for any government probe, but will his continuance as BJP president now come under a cloud? Joining us on the center stage face-off this evening is Yatin Oza, leader of the BJP, joining us from Ahmedabad. Also with us is Prashant Bhushan, member of the India Against Corruption. It was Prashant Bhushan and Arvind Kejriwal who first dug out charges against Nitin Gadkari. Mr. Bhushan, the BJP president says, unlike Robert Vadra, he is prepared to throw himself open for any government probe. He says, all my transactions are above board. There is absolutely no reason to resign because I am not hiding. I came, I met the press, I've said probe my enterprises, I will be found to be completely innocent. Should we allow the probe now to take its own place, or will you press for the president's resignation?
So what does the media probe show? It shows firstly that contrary to his claim that his company is a cooperative of farmers, 18 companies own about 65 crores, that is about more than 80% of the shares in his company. And these 18 companies are registered at addresses which are chawls or are clearly fake. That the directors of many of these 18 companies are his own domestic employees, like his driver or his private secretary or his chartered accountant, etc. Therefore, he has been asked, who are the real owners of this company? And he has not answered that. Clearly, the clear suspicion that arises out of this is that these companies are really Benami companies owned by him. And therefore, the legitimate question which arises is, where does he get these 65 crores to invest in these companies? Because, and if he had these 65 crores from some other means, then why does he adopt this kind of Benami circuitous route, etc.? Now he says that he is open to any investigation, though he is not answering these questions.
Okay, you've laid the grounds
owners of
for this debate.
Companies.
You're saying just yes, please.
One second. He is saying that I am open to an investigation by the government because he is secure in the knowledge that he will not be investigated by the government, because he has said when this Anjali Damania met him, he told her that, look, how do you expect me to raise these things against the Pawars, because we do 4 things for them, they do 4 things for us. And that is why Mr. Sharad Pawar was the first to jump up in his defense. So the problem is, and like Mr. Digvijay Singh has said, that look, we don't really go after the top people in the opposite party, because there is this agreement between us that we will not attack each other's main families or the main people who control these parties.
Okay, Prashant Bhushan, you've laid the grounds for this debate. You're saying Nitin Gadkari is not answering specific questions, and Yatin Oza is representing the BJP on this show. Mr. Oza, our correspondents went to the Charles in Mumbai where Nitin Gadkari's companies are registered. We spoke to people who own those Charles, who own those particular shanties, and they say no. Mr. Gadkari's company is not registered over here. He has been exposed because the investigation very clearly shows he put out fictitious addresses. People like drivers, chartered accountants, secretaries were directors of these firms. This is a bogus operation that now stands exposed, Mr. Oza.
Look, at the outset, let me tell you that a person who makes an allegation has to be ready to accept the challenge when the other party against whom the allegations are made, that he is ready to be probed. Now, probe doesn't mean that it is a probe by governmental agencies. Probe can be by a retired judge of the High Court or the Supreme Court, or by any independent agencies by way of commission of inquiry or otherwise. But Mr. Prashant Bhushan is trying to justify his allegations, his and Mr. Kejriwal's allegations, by citing that your media has found out this, your media has found out that. Look, it is not a media trial. When you make allegations, you make it with all seriousness. And when the person against whom the allegations are made with equal seriousness challenges you, that come and let us get it probed, you can't take shelter of media inquiries or inquiries which are not statutory or having a legal
So
backing.
are you suggesting, Mr. Oza, on behalf of the BJP president, that Nitin Gadkari is
Mr.
open
Prashant Bhushan,
for a probe by a retired judge of the Supreme Court or the High Court? So is the BJP president saying, outside the government purview, outside the government agencies, let an independent judge probe me?
See, when he says governmental agencies, all commissions are appointed by the government, not by anybody else. Under the Commission of Inquiries Act, it is only the state or the central government which are empowered to appoint the commissions. And therefore, to say that Mr. Gadkari's statement should be considered in the stricto sensu terms like government is not right. And one thing, that person who makes an allegation should be ready when other side against whom the allegation is made, that I am prepared to be probed.
But you aren't answering
infer that governmental agencies would not act fairly.
You aren't answering, Mr. Oza, the questions that Prashant Bhushan is raising. And if you look at the story clearly indicates that the addresses at which these companies were registered, Purti Power and Sugar, is in a chawl in Mumbai where that company doesn't exist. This is a declaration made before the ROC. The facts speak for themselves. Can you justify what Mr. Gadkari did? And does this not damage the BJP's claims as a party that is out to fight corruption?
But yeah, BJP is committed to eradicate corruption from at all levels. But this is what is merely an inquiry which has no backing of any law or statute. When a person who is alleged against with no qualms has put forward a straight and simple formula to be probed, why it should not be probed rather than media inquiries and then putting it before the people with no statutory force?
Okay, let me put that question then to Prashant Bhushan. Instead of holding a media inquisition, Nitin Gadkari is going to the extent of saying let an independent judge outside of government control also probe him. So don't jump into conclusions. Let the probe happen and let's see whether the BJP president is guilty or not.
So is he saying that, for example, we have appointed an internal ombudsman to probe ourselves? Is he willing, is Mr. Gadkari willing that this ombudsman also probe Mr. Gadkari? Will he cooperate with this probe? If he is prepared to do that, let him say so. And we will ask those ombudsmen or request those ombudsmen to probe the charges against Mr. Gadkari as well.
No, but like you've picked your own ombudsman, Mr. Gadkari can pick somebody he wants to be probed by. You are the ones who picked who would be probing you and the other leaders of the ISC against whom there were charges. Mr. Gadkari can also find a respected retired judge.
So the first question is that if so many sections of the media have investigated, you see, it's not this Purti Power which is registered in a chawl. It's the 18 companies which have invested 65 crores in Purti Power, which are registered in chawls or in fictitious addresses, and which appear to be owned or controlled by his domestic staff, etc. Mr. Gadkari has not answered these very specific questions which have been asked. Who owns these companies? Who are the real owners of these 18 companies, which have been asked of him by several media organizations? Let him answer at least those. It's all right for him to say that he is willing for any probe. That's fine. But first, let him at least answer these very specific questions, very pertinent questions, very damaging questions, which have been raised not by one but by by several sections of the media after going there, investigating on the basis of documents of this Purti Power, which shows that these companies are the companies which have invested 65 crores in this Purti Power. and these companies' registered address is so and so. So several media organizations go there, find that there is no such company there, that these are chawls, etc., whose addresses have been given, that the directors of these companies are his own domestic staff, etc. Why does he not answer this specifically?
Let Mr. Yatin Yoza
I mean, he
try and
seems to be
answer
just
that.
buying time.
Is this just a desperate attempt by the beleaguered president to buy time? What explains a director being chosen as a driver being chosen as director in 6 companies? Just on this one specific question, why is a driver a director in 6 of his firms? Is this not a Benami operation for Mr. Nitin Gadkari?
Mr. Bhushan saying this 10 times will lead us nowhere. He repeatedly and continuously persisted on 3 points, but they are mere allegations. Mr. Gadkari is not supposed to answer every question that is put to him from every nook and corner of the country. Instead of it, he very rightly said that I am prepared to be probed. It's a very honest offer, a very genuine and a bona fide way of putting him before the people at large, saying that probe it, I am here, no,
and
whatever the
but these are not just allegations, these are documented facts. These are documented facts from the ROC website. These are his declarations. These are Mr. Gadkari's declarations, and the fact that a driver is a director in 6 companies is not being contested by Mr. Gadkari. I'm asking you, Mr. Oza, why did he make a driver his director in 6 firms?
Rahul, these are... But who says so? These are mere allegations. It has to be probed. I am putting it in a very plain and simple way that allegations man may face many, but when he himself comes out and says, yeah, that is what you say, Mr. Bhushan. And for a moment I do not say that what you say is right or is wrong. But when Mr. Bhushan, when Mr. Gadkari has said that I am prepared to be probed, and probe will be by a statutory authority, either in form of ombudsman or any other mode or method, as I stated earlier, why you people should doubt it at the outset and say that no, this is a media inquiry, and therefore it must be accepted. Because I really don't understand. Prashant, you have a right to make allegations. You have to prove it. And when the man against whom you have made the allegations is in no answer.
Prashant Bhushan, Nitin Gadkari in his defense says, and I want to quote over here, I can accept equity from anyone. There is nothing wrong. I'm friends with Mr. Mahishka and many contractors are my friends. It is not illegal to be involved in business dealings. And there might have been companies that got contracts, but that doesn't prove anything dubious or financially fraudulent. Let's assume that a driver is indeed a director in 6 companies. He claims time and again he's a social entrepreneur. He says there's nothing illegal in what I am doing. How do you answer that, Mr. Bhushan?
So there are several questions. First, you said this question about his accepting equity or 165 crore loan from persons who are in charge of construction, this IRB road construction company, to whom Mr. Gadkari had given contracts when he was a minister. The question straight away arises, is this not a conflict of interest? On the one hand, Mr. Gadkari as a minister is giving contracts to a company, and that company is investing huge sums of money or loaning huge sums of money to Mr. Gadkari's company. To my mind, it's a straightforward conflict of interest. Even if it may not be a crime to do that, but prima facie, in my view, it would in fact amount to an offense under the Prevention of Corruption Act. On the second question about his driver being a director of 6 companies which have invested several crores as equity into Mr. Gadkari's firm, the question is, whose funds are these? Whose funds are these 65 crores? Does Mr. Gadkari's driver own these funds of 65 crores? Does his accountant own these funds? Does his private secretary own these funds? What are the source? What is the source of the funds of these 18 companies which have been invested into Mr. Gadkari's company, these 65 crores? The suspicion clearly arises from the fact that these appear to be fictitious companies which are registered in which are registered in addresses where they don't exist.
Okay.
That they are, his own domestic staff are the directors, that these are Benami companies owned by Mr. Gadkari himself. And he has to explain the source of these funds.
Mr. Oza, let me put some facts before you. Mr. Gadkari's company Purti received a loan from a company called Global. You know, at a time when Global had a turnover of 145 crores, it had losses of 49 crore rupees. This company lent 164 crore rupees to Mr. Gadkari's company, using which Purti wiped out all its debts. But why would a company which is suffering losses of 49 crores loan 164 crore rupees to Mr. Gadkari's company? There's something which seems to be terribly amiss in these dealings.
No, at the first brush you may feel so, but these are all business intricacies, and exigency of the business at one point of time may require this to be done. Therefore, you may be right that it may raise a needle of suspicion, but you can't come to a conclusion, and more so because man has come out openly for being probed. Business intricacies are such that many a times, inter-se funds are required to be transferred, intra-company or inter-se company funds are required to be transferred. Merely because it is so, you can't jump up to a conclusion that 2 plus 2 will be equal to 4.
But you're admitting yourself, Mr. Oza, that this raises the needle of suspicion. This raises the needle of suspicion. But why this raises the needle of suspicion even more is because this is the company that Mr. Gadkari gave out contracts to when he was the PWD Minister of Maharashtra. So there is a quid pro quo. He ensured that this company benefited. Later, that company ensured that they gave a loan even though they were suffering from losses. That's the quid pro quo that Prashant Bhushan refers to.
No, I would respectfully disagree and say that this is merely a figment of imagination.
Which part of this is a figment of imagination? These are all facts. Which one of what I'm saying is a figment of anybody's imagination?
Simply because something at the first, and something that you don't find at the first brush, that this is may not appeal to somebody at the first brush, need not be dishonest at every point of time.
But
man may have an explanation, valid explanation, and after his explanation comes, people would accept it. But you don't want it to be done. You want media trial to be done. Why? Not a statutory trial, not a statutory probe.
But is that not then the Robert Vadra?
By one section of
it's
the media,
the same Robert Vadra defense, Mr. Prashant Bhushan,
and convict Mr. Gadkari.
It's the same Robert Vadra defense that DLF sold land to Robert Vadra. Robert Vadra got it mutated, got it transferred, the land use pattern changed, he sold it at 7 times back to DLF. So what if they did it? There is nothing which is illegal, because these are two business entities, they're entering into a transaction, and there's nothing Prashant Bhushan can do about it if they want to scratch each other's backs. As long as it's happening within the purview of law, Mr. Bhushan, there's nothing you and I can do about it.
Firstly, you see, under the Prevention of Corruption Act, it is an offence for a public servant to receive any form of gratification, whether for himself or for some other person, from a person with whom that public servant has official dealings. So that means if Mr. Gadkari was involved in deciding contracts to be given to this IRB company, then it is an offence for Mr. Gadkari to receive any gratification in any form whatsoever for himself or for any other person from that person. Now this 165 crore so-called loan, it prima facie from a company which is making losses, to my mind, amounts to some form of gratification for Mr. Gadkari's company. So prima facie, it would involve an offence under the Prevention of Corruption Act. Same thing about Robert Vadra. Robert Vadra receives 50 crores from DLF for just getting land use of this land changed for DLF from the Congress government, over which his mother-in-law has complete control from this Haryana government. Therefore, to my mind, prima facie again, it amounts to an offence under the Prevention of Corruption Act.
Yatin Oza, I'm out of time on this debate, but I want to now ask you, do these charges against Nitin Gadkari not blunt the BJP's edge ahead of the winter session? You are planning to target the Congress on the issue of Robert Vadra. Now they will say Vadra equal to Gadkari and therefore both cancel each other out, and neither you would be able to say much nor would Congress be able to say much. India Against Corruption says, we told you they're all mixed up. Does this not make Gadkari's continuance as BJP president now untenable, Mr. Oza?
Absolutely not. BJP, as I said earlier, is wedded to eradicate corruption from all walks of life. And BJP would take up the issue with all seriousness in coming winter session. Mr. Vadra has not offered himself to be probed. The main difference is that Mr. Gadkari has offered himself to be probed. It is for the government now to appoint the probe agency and wait for the result. Mr. Vadra's case can't be compared with that of Mr. Gadkari at all. And as I again say and repeat it, pardon me for repeating, BJP is wholly and fully committed to eradicate corruption from all walks of life.
Okay, very quick final word from Prashant Bhushan. There's a big difference when the Vadra charges surfaced. The entire Congress leadership rallied around Vadra saying there is no need for a probe. The moment the Gadkari charges surfaced, Veerappa Moily spoke to us on other channels and immediately ordered a discreet probe which he announced to the public. So a big difference in the manner in which they're handling Gadkari and the manner in which they're handling Vadra.
No, Mr. Moily also announced that he had probed Mr. Vadra and had found him to be in the clear. He announced that within a few hours of these allegations being made against Mr. Vadra. So Mr. Moily is saying that he will do some discreet probe, etc. means nothing. You see, Mr. Sharad Pawar has defended Mr. Gadkari fully. Mr. Ajit Pawar was so benevolent to Mr. Gadkari that within 4 days of Gadkari writing to Ajit Pawar, he immediately ordered this land which had been taken from farmers for the purpose of a dam to be given to Mr. Gadkari's organization. So therefore, we have seen, and that substantiates what Anjali Damani has said, that when she went to Gadkari for raising this issue of this irrigation scam of the Pawars, then Gadkari's response was that you are political novices, we can't do politics like this, we sit with them, they do 4 things for us, we do 4 things for them. All that is getting substantiated. The BJP did not raise the Vadra issue, we had to raise it. Just as the Congress did not raise the Gadkari issue and are jumping or effectively jumping to his defense, the Digvijay Singh says that he is not willing to attack the first family or people close to Mr. Advani or Mr. Vajpayee, etc. So there appears to be this conspiracy of silence among the main parties that look, we are not going to go after each other, and that is why they don't want. Neither of them wants an independent, empowered Lokpal which has teeth, which can send them to jail.
I'm going to leave it over there. The BJP is boxed into a corner. The Congress is treading with caution, and India Against Corruption is thrilled. They're saying this fits into our thesis that the Congress and the BJP are mixed up. It's a very close-knit society where they don't target each other. The facts are out in the public domain. We don't want to sit in on judgment. The difference between Gadkari and Vadra tonight is that Gadkari is saying he's open for a probe. Does that put him at a higher pedestal? You must decide. Is a fair probe possible? Again, you decide. Yatin Oza and Prashant Bhushan for joining me on the center stage face-off this evening. Thank you very much.